Okay, so let's imagine you're living abroad, right?
Mhm.
You're loving the new culture, maybe soaking up some sun, and then oh, medical emergency.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, you're suddenly having to navigate a whole new healthcare system, and on top of it all, you're worried if your pre-existing condition is even going to be covered.
Yeah, that's a really scary thought, and honestly, it's something a lot of people don't even think about until it's too late.
And that's exactly why we're doing this deep dive today. We're going to be looking at how pre-existing conditions can really make things complicated when it comes to international health insurance, especially if you're living or traveling outside your home country. And we're really lucky to have some great insights from Brett LaMar to help us out here.
Yeah.
He's an expat insurance broker who's seen it all.
Yeah, he's a great resource. And one of the things Brett really emphasizes that international health insurance is totally different from what most people are used to back home.
Okay, so break this down for me. What exactly makes international health insurance so different, especially when we're talking pre-existing conditions?
Well, one of the biggest things is they really emphasize full disclosure. International insurers want to know your entire medical history, and they look very carefully at any risks that might come with pre-existing conditions.
So let's say I have a pre-existing condition, but it's well managed with medication. Does that make a difference?
You would think so, right? But unfortunately, it doesn't always make a difference. Even if you're feeling great and your condition is totally under control, it's still considered pre-existing to the insurer. They're thinking about long-term risks, not just how healthy you are right now.
So it sounds like it's a lot stricter than most people would expect.
Hmm.
So what if I have something like asthma or even kidney stones? Could those be red flags?
Oh, absolutely. Even things that you might think are minor can be flagged as pre-existing. And then you have certain conditions like Crohn's disease or HIV that can often lead to automatic denials.
Okay, so that's where having someone like Brett on your side sounds like it could be crucial. Why is going directly to an insurance company potentially a bad idea?
Well, Brett's actually shared some pretty scary stories about people who tried to navigate this on their own and ended up with claims being denied or getting hit with unexpected expenses. A broker like Brett can really be your advocate. They help you understand all the fine print and prevent those nightmare situations.
So they're like expert translators for all that insurance jargon.
Exactly. And the great thing is they already have relationships with hospitals and insurers, so that can really help speed things up and maybe even get you better rates.
Now, this is something I want to highlight because I know a lot of people think using a broker means paying extra.
Yeah, that's a really common misconception. Brokers like Brett don't actually cost you anything extra. Their fees are covered by the insurance company.
So you get all that expert help for free.
That's right. It's like having a personal healthcare concierge who can walk you through everything.
So let's talk about medications for these pre-existing conditions. Are those typically covered?
So that's where things can get a little tricky. Because medications are often tied to a specific condition, they might not be covered automatically. For example, if you're taking something for cholesterol, the insurer sees that underlying condition of dyslipidemia. Same thing with blood pressure medication and hypertension or metformin and diabetes.
So even if I'm feeling great because my medication is working, the insurance company still sees that underlying condition and the potential risk.
Exactly. They're looking at the bigger picture and trying to assess the chances of you needing to file a claim in the future.
What if I apply for international health insurance and one company just denies me outright? Does that mean I'm out of luck everywhere?
Not necessarily, and this is another area where a broker can really be helpful. Brett actually suggests applying to a few different insurers at the same time, especially if you have a pre-existing condition that might raise some eyebrows.
So they know which insurance companies might be more open to certain situations.
Yeah, they can save you a lot of time and stress by being strategic about where you apply based on your medical history.
So for someone who's thinking about moving abroad, when should they start looking at international health insurance?
Brett's advice is to start right away. Even if you're just in the planning stages, start researching and getting some quotes. It's never too early to plan, especially when it comes to your health.
And I love that you recommend starting with a short-term emergency medical policy. It's a great way to have some coverage while you're still figuring things out.
Definitely. It gives you that initial security while you're exploring your options for a more comprehensive annual policy.
Speaking of those annual policies, are there any age restrictions or deadlines to keep in mind?
Yes, there are. Most international health insurance policies require you to apply before you turn 75. But the good news is, once you're in, you're in. You're guaranteed renewability for life.
So that's a deadline you really don't want to miss.
Right. And if you're over 65, just so you know, you'll also need to have some medical exams as part of the application process.
Okay, so let's say I'm ready to talk to Brett. What can I expect? What's that initial consultation like?
Well, usually Brett starts with a discovery email or a phone call, whichever you prefer. He asks some questions to see what your needs are, and then he can steer you toward policies that would be a good fit for you. He wants to know if you're looking for short-term or long-term coverage, any pre-existing conditions, you have medications you're taking, things like that.
So it's like a personalized assessment to figure out what kind of coverage you need and what you can afford.
Exactly. He'll usually give you 3 different options, from top-tier coverage to more basic plans, along with all the details and premiums. Then you can take your time, review everything, talk it over with him, and come back with any questions.
So it really takes the guesswork out of it. And I know Brett emphasizes that there's no cost for this consultation.
That's right. He's not there to pressure you into anything. He wants to make sure you find the right coverage for you.
So once you've chosen a policy, what's next? Is there a ton of paperwork?
Brett says most applications are done online, but he's happy to walk you through it over the phone if you're not comfortable doing it that way. If it's a straightforward approval, you can usually get a decision within 24 hours.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah.
But what if the insurance company has questions or needs more information based on your medical history?
In those cases, it might take a bit longer, usually 72 to 96 hours to get an initial response. Then they'll give you 30 to 45 days to send in any additional documents they need.
So there's definitely some back and forth involved, especially if your medical history is more complicated.
Right. And that's another time when having a broker like Brett can be a huge help. He can handle all the communication with the insurance company, explain any confusing medical terms, and make sure you don't get lost in the process.
So it's like having someone to hold your hand through the whole thing.
Exactly. It takes a lot of the stress and uncertainty away.
Okay, so you finally get the offer from the insurance company. What happens then? Do you just automatically accept?
Well, not so fast. You actually have a couple of options. If it's a standard approval, meaning everything looks good, you can go ahead and accept it. But if there are any restrictions or exclusions, Brett really encourages you to look those over carefully before you accept and pay for the policy.
So you have a chance to negotiate or clarify anything that doesn't make sense.
Absolutely. And this is where a broker can really shine. They can help you understand what those restrictions or exclusions really mean, and they might even be able to advocate for better terms on your behalf.
So they're like your personal insurance bodyguard, making sure you're really protected.
Exactly. They want to make sure you're getting the coverage you need at a price you can afford.
So let's say you've accepted the offer, paid your premium, and you have this great new international health insurance policy. What happens if you actually need to use it? What are the steps?
Brett is very clear about this. He wants to be your first point of contact if you find yourself in a medical situation. He's available 24/7, 365 days a year through WhatsApp, phone, or email.
So it's like having your own personal healthcare hotline.
Mm.
But what about actually using the insurance at a hospital, especially in a foreign country? How does that work in practice?
That's a great question, and it's one we'll dive into right after this.